Good evening. So I'm not sure how many of you have been a sort of member of a live audience on a live TV show recently. So whether that's a game show or whether that's a chat show. But I think I'm the warm-up act this evening before some of the main sponsors who have done a brilliant job for us all over the Olympics come and talk to us about what they've been doing. So if I'm the warm-up act, then I'm afraid you're the warm-up audience. So there's an expectation that you should express that. I don't have applause cards, but if I did, I'd be using them. And so I encourage you to express that Olympic fervour as I get to key points through talking about the mood of the nation over the last 9 months or so. So let's cast our minds back to how Brits were generally feeling about the Olympics at the start of 2012. Can you remember that? Mutterings along the lines of look what good it did Greece, and scorn that we've been albatrossed with the monumental cost in the middle of a double-dip recession. Very serious concerns about the threat of a terrorist strike. Watch London Games from Paris, it's safer and cheaper, headlined the Sunday Express. And my favourite from The Sun, who headlined the front page with oops early on in the year. And at work, our admin team were talking of the need for Y2K-style stockpiling of water and baked beans, whilst even at home, my wife, responding to talk of watching the likes of Jessica Ennis and Mo Farah with comments of who, or even and why is that interesting? So against a backdrop of media doom-mongering and a general sense that Brits were perhaps not as positively engaged with the Olympics as the price tag should require, we at JWT were curious to track and understand how the British public's feelings and reactions to the Games might evolve over the course of the year. So starting in February, Marie and her team in business intelligence set up a monthly Olympic mood tracker, asking 500 Brits up and down the country, first of all, how excited they were about the Games, secondly, whether they think the Games are a good thing for Britain, and thirdly, on a scale of 1 to 10, how proud are you to be British? So, as you'll probably remember, March was a bit of a scorcher, as we poured into our gardens and parks to enjoy the sunshine. Naturally, this raised everyone's spirits, creating an early and slightly over-exuberant burst of excitement and positivity towards the Games. The percentage of people agreeing or strongly agreeing that they were excited about the Games jumped nearly 10%, from a starting point of 40 up to 50%. And those agreeing to or strongly agreeing that the Games were a good thing for Britain leapt over 10% as well to about 60%. Excellent. So the starter's gun had been fired, and there we were, all racing towards the finish line, albeit a bit too sunburnt for early March with pints of Pimm's in our hands. Now, Britain could well be described as the nation of the underwhelmed, with a default setting of moan. In a separate survey that we ran this year, which we published, moaning comes in fourth in the top 10 typically British characteristics. And that comes behind traditional, self-deprecating, stiff upper lip. So by the time the sunshine had quite correctly taken his hat back off and exited stage left in early April, the press were once again getting the bit between the teeth, and we were back into the normal swing of things. April and May saw a reassuringly characteristic dip of negativity and moaning. Concerns resurfaced about security and the spectre of Fortress London. On the one hand, there were errors on oversold tickets, and on the other hand, frustration and anger from those who couldn't get their hands on any. There was a growing feeling that Britain wouldn't and couldn't actually pull off the Games, and that our attempts to do so were pouring billions down the Olympic drain. The Independent identified Olympic moaning as our new national sport. The international press, such as the New York Times and Der Spiegel, could hardly believe how unexcited we were. By the end of May, our excitement and belief that the Olympics were a good thing for Britain had fallen back to the levels recorded at the start of the year, and the early burst had turned out to be a bit of a false start. But fear not, Lord Coe was only too right when back in 2011 he said, "The nature of British people is that they don't get overly excited about things too quickly." A cocktail of Euro 2012 football, TV screens filled with flag-waving crowds at the Jubilee, and the Olympic and sponsors' marketing machines cranking up into fifth gear did the trick. And by June, the feelings and noise of positivity were drowning out the doom-mongers. Those now excited about the Games were back over 50%, and nearly two-thirds of the country believed that the Games were a good thing for Britain. And as we all know and experienced, there's been no looking back ever since. With the Olympics now in full swing, the disaster scenario is not to be seen, even if G4S had a very good punt at it. A successful opening ceremony to kick it all off, and Team GB racking up the gold medals. Olympic fervour gripped the nation. Those excited rocketed to 81%, double the 41% back in February. And the percentage of those believing that the Games would be good for Britain also leapt to 81%. What was particularly good to see was that it was the 18 to 34-year-old bracket that were reacting the most positively. 87% of them were excited about the Games. And the percentage of that age group that thought that the Games would be good for Britain had ballooned from 56% in February to 91% in August. So, if one of the key objectives was to inspire a new generation, then it certainly looked like that was being achieved. I also want to add that counter to TGI data that shows women generally being less enthusiastic about the majority of sports, when it comes to the Games, women have been equally as enthusiastic as the men. Now, after the Olympic closing ceremony, we threw in an additional question on what impressed people the most. It's of little surprise that people have been most excited by Team GB's performance and our brilliant athletes, scoring top at 8.6 on an I'm impressed with scoring scale of 1 out of 10. For now, athletes are our new rock stars, and with great backstories of self-sacrifice and triumph over adversity, they are potentially highly convincing and credible brand ambassadors. 79% of our 500 panel agree with this, and for now, 65% would rather see brand activity featuring an athlete than a celebrity or a Premier League footballer. As Boris said, and I'm glad you didn't have the same quote I did, you showed every child in this country that success is not just about talent and luck, but about grit and guts and hard work. And you showed fantastic grace in victory and amazing courage in defeat. But the opening ceremony, the volunteers, the military stepping in to help sort out the G4S disaster, and the TV coverage, all highly impressed as well, with scores around 7 or 8 out of 10. Overall, the Olympic Games were scored at an average of 8.4 for success, with over 60% of people scoring them a 9 or a 10. Pretty good. Now, for anyone here from Sainsbury's in particular, you'll be glad to hear that the positivity has remained high during and after the Paralympics too. Whilst initially not quite at the levels just after the Olympics, excitement during the Paralympics was still 10% higher than it was in July, just before the Olympics started. But notably, within that, the percentage of those who strongly agree to being excited is actually 10% higher than it was before. And again, 76% of people think that the Paralympics are a good thing for Britain, 16% higher than pre the Olympics. So here we go. The reading that we've taken in the last 24 hours, which is the final one going from the 60 to the 73, has the percentage of those claiming to be excited up to the 73%. And incidentally, that reading is at 75% for the women, so well done the women. And the percentage of those thinking that it's a good thing for Britain are up at the highest that it's been yet, at 85%. And women are at 88%, and 18 to 34-year-olds at 87%. Now, I keep mentioning the statement that people were asked to agree or disagree with. The games are a good thing for Britain. But this is a fairly broad statement. So we wanted to dig a little deeper in the latest wave and asked a number of questions to find out more specifically what way a positive impact was being felt. So, for example, some of these were around the impact that the games would have on the broader economy. What our responses show is that amidst all the excitement, we were all still a nation of realists. And that British people don't have a high level of confidence that there will be an Olympic bounce in the British economy. Only 8% strongly believe the economy will recover now more quickly, and 17% somewhat believe that there will be a bounce. This, of course, correlates with consumer confidence data, which has not been positively affected either, and has, according to GfK NOP, never been so low for so long, I'm afraid, remaining flat for the last 4 months. What the responses do show is that the payback is more emotional. From now on, we will feel better about being British. There we go, that's the one. I think I got the clicker the wrong way around. Yeah, so we will feel better about being British. So 72% think that the country will have now a stronger identity. That's fairly high. 70% think that others will feel more British. And having spent the past month sharing the joys and tears, us Brits believe that we will feel more connected to our local communities in the future at 53%. We also think that the rest of the world will have a more favourable view of us. 73% thinking that other countries will view Britain more positively. And after shots of picture-perfect ventures and venues were beamed around the globe, 59% think that there may be a boom in tourism. And this takes us back to the third of the key measures that we tracked throughout the year, which was to ask people to rate out of 10 how proud they are of Britain. So over the last 6 months, we've been invited onto various news programs to talk about this topic of the mood of the nation, before the game started, then during it, and then a couple of days ago just as it finished. What we predicted early on was that whilst the excitement and good for Britain metrics might fluctuate, the pride in Britain metrics would continue to build on a fairly consistent upward trajectory. And this is exactly, fortunately, what we've seen. We also said that we do expect a bit of a hangover dip in the first two metrics, but again, that pride in Britain would remain higher for longer and could therefore present opportunities for all of us. Overall, the pride in Britain score has climbed from 7.33 out of 10 up to 7.81, and now 8.23 after the games have finished. So that's a very, very strong climb. Within this, the over 55s are consistently more proud at 8+ out of 10. But once again, it was the 18 to 34-year-olds feelings that have shifted the most, from the lowest base of 6.75 up by over 1.5 points to 8.3. So inspired indeed. So the games have been a great antidote to Britain's recession fatigue after years of belt-tightening and economic gloom. And 68% agree that I'm tired of hearing about the recession, and the Olympics and Paralympics were a welcome distraction. And with Team GB medal rush across the games, Brits feel like world beaters again. But most importantly, there is a new confidence in Britishness. Britishness as a positive virtue, rebuilding brand Britain at home and abroad. There's a renewed faith and confidence in the flag which brands can tap into. 63% of Brits think the Games have been a good thing for British brands. We saw that we could perform under pressure logistically. We delivered great stadia, great ceremonies, the transport held up under pressure, and the volunteers created an unprecedented friendly atmosphere. There's a sense among people now that we can achieve. Lord Coe concluded in his speech at the closing ceremony of the Games by saying, "There are some famous words that you can find stamped on the bottom of a product. Words that when you read them, you know mean high quality, mean skill, mean creativity. We have stamped those words on the Olympic and Paralympic Games. London 2012, made in Britain." So, I trust that that was a suitable warm-up. Thank you for your one outburst there, Peter. Very well. I'm fairly relieved that I didn't have to stand up here this evening and tell you how poor the mood of the nation has been. For the sell piece that I'm not supposed to do, if you want to find out more, do go to jwt.co.uk, where we will be continuing to track through the rest of the year so you can see how our mood fares for the next few months. Thank you very much.